You remember Shadow of Mordor. It was universally hailed as out Assassin's Creeding Assassin's Creed. And looking back, it almost felt a bit proof of concept-y, but a concept proved. Yeah, combining Arkham combat with Assassin's Creed free running and stealth, mashing up the two all in a sandbox environment prime for organic storytelling is a cool idea for a full game. And now here comes that full game in Shadow of War. Once again, you play as Talion, local Middle-earthian stud being kept alive by a wraith, and the two must make a good ring to stop the bad ring, and Sauron, and there's a city and an artifact. I think it's safe to say that no one lauded Shadow of Mordor for its gripping narrative or enticing characters, what with the leading duo being a grim angry ghost and a grim angry stud, slapped together in a loveless marriage. And not much has changed in Shadow of Mordor. None of the side characters are really interesting at all, just a bunch of boring assholes talking in prose about how everything sucks. I will give Mordor points for having a villain I actually knew who they were this time around, but then again, it's just the Dark Lord Sauron, so fair's fair though. The third act twist is pretty cool. But you know what? Who cares about main plot? I guess Monolith does, because they just overloaded this game with it. But we have the Nemesis system. Yeah, who needs the Dark Lord Sauron as an enemy when we can take our generic protagonist angst down on this bastard who's killed me 3 times now? Who needs all these characters being sad about stuff when we have orcs talking about how they love killing stuff? Those unfamiliar, the Nemesis system is the best thing ever without hyperbole. Basically, Mordor is in a state of organic flux, with all the orcs slapping each other and trying to make fun of the others to get to the top of the food chain, where the war chiefs flaunt their bollocks. When you die, the orc who kills you gets a name, a wife, a house, and basically succeeds in everything you failed in high school, and also enters the web of promotion seekers. It's pretty much lifted wholesale from Shadow of Mordor, including the feature to brainwash orcs to stick fingers in the Mordor power struggle, although that takes a whole act of the story, and I don't know why. And this feature has seen an upgrade. You can use the orcs you've dominated, suggestive tone of voice optional, to make an army. This build an army shtick is the biggest new feature, taking all the orcs you get and throwing them at the massive strongholds littered throughout Mordor. You can pick your choicest chums for assaulting the gates, upgrade them with extra sieging features, and basically become a field commander. There have also been systems thrown into the core gameplay. The game's now a quasi-RPG. Earning XP will level up your Talion, which will give him skill points and allow him to recruit more powerful orcs, and killing captains will drop random loot you can equip. More powerful gear like Legendary or Epic, having little challenges that you can complete to make their beauty maximum. I like these systems because it gives a reason to brainwash the orcs rather than just having them. In Shadow of Mordor, killing and claiming orcs was pretty much just for its own sake, and you could pretty much take or leave it either way. But now you have the toss-up of killing captains for loot, or adding them to your power posse. And you can't recruit captains that are above your level, so then there comes another toss-up of, do you want to shame them so you can capture them later, or kill them outright and just take the loot. There is a lot of fun to be had though, climbing your way through the web, pulling at threads, deciding which things you want, which things you can kill. It's good organic fun for when you finally do want to storm the fortress. I feel like the game lets itself down though, a bit in this respect. For one thing, storming a fortress plays out pretty identically every time. Go in, capture points, fight a boss, who I guess is a boss, but he looks like every other orc you've been fighting, but this one strikes a sexy pose. And then Finn. I feel like there could have been a little more effort into making the overlords actually feel like distinct big bad guys instead of just captains in lofty chairs. And the fortresses themselves could play out differently either time, maybe, depending on the guy and his personality, and whether he'd set traps or not. It'd feel like more of a reward, I think, especially since every freaking region asks you to, hey, start a new army again. And this can make things a bit repetitive when you know for a fact what you're going to end up doing with all the people that you're collecting. Defending your fortresses isn't that much better. It's pretty much just, hey, these guys, kill these guys. It's times like these where I feel like the game is really using the Nemesis system as a bit of a crutch. No, the gameplay has to be stark and bare, because, you know, there's so much variation with these guys. I'm not saying the Nemesis system doesn't make it easy to get invested regardless, but at the same time, the longer you go on, the less you begin to care about the unique captains, and the more focused you become on, well, I guess we're doing this again. Repetition that really becomes distinct in the fourth act, the Shadow Wars. Without spoiling too much, since you've done all the missions at this point, there's barely any way to gain level and gain XP and gain higher level captains, so you're grinding for quite some time, and it can get repetitive. The Nemesis system just doesn't carry that particular luster it used to. But then again, Shadow of Mordor did make us rethink an aspect of video games we've long taken for granted, dying in games and how killing enemies leveled you up, but now enemies could level up from killing you. There's not really a new way of interacting with orcs. Not really. All you can ever do to the orcs, much like the first game, is just kill them or brainwash them, but with an added step. The game does have fun new surprises to throw at you, like random ambushes, and it's always a delight to hear a captain comment on your dismembering technique you just used to kill another captain. But like I said, the longer the game goes on, the less cool it is that this guy's cheated death 3 times already, and it's just, oh, I guess I'm gonna fight this guy for a little bit. Oddly enough though, it was in those random moments of, hey, there are captains here now, that I started bolstering my forces the most. The game carries over something from Shadow of Mordor, which is making Nemesis missions things that you have to go to and manually start, which I guess I could see the merit to, but to me it'd be a lot more more organic for the world if they just occurred naturally, and you could just bump into them on the way to the next mission. Like, alright, I guess I could use this, Captain. Just brainwash. Make the world feel a bit more organic, especially if paired with an in-game clock. It definitely gives the open world a little more spice, rather than just being a, ooh, collect the things, ooh, collect the outposts. I guess taking down the outpost does mean that the resulting castle siege is going to be easier, but still, it would be nice to see the Nemesis system more organically integrate into the open world. Well, I guess it's time to board the complaint train, choo-choo! Story missions are pretty much always just bland, sneak around and stab the dudes, or just stab the dudes sort of way, which can be kind of boring. Few new enemy types have been added. Ologs are kind of fun to fight. The Nazgul fights are about as fun as correctly following stapling procedures on packets of documents. And, well, actually, Drakes are pretty cool. I like flying a Drake a lot. Wait, this is the complaint trade. Need more complaints. One system I particularly didn't get was the gem system. See, enemies can drop loot like daggers or swords, but they can also drop these gems that you can use to give extra bonuses, like gain a little bit more XP, or gain some more health on this, or do more damage. But the benefits to me just didn't feel all that apparent, and it feels like it could have been worked into gear somehow. Especially when I figured out that you can apply the stats differently depending on what gear you put the gems in, and it just seems like a weird thing, and just increases the RNG, which is fun, I guess. I think that's it. But all in all, I really do like Shadow of War. It's not quite the breath of fresh air that Shadow of Mordor was, but it's still a good time, even though it is a bit flabbier. I'd like to call out the upgrade menu for taking up half my playtime, for just deciding what skills I wanted to get, because they're just all great. But like Mordor, you never feel overpowered, because you can just get easily overwhelmed if you aren't prepared for shit like this. 5 captains! The various systems at play have their quibbles, but nothing derails the experience. All the petty niggles just mean that the game just doesn't feel like a great sequel. But it doesn't mean it's a bad game. The open-ended nature of how you can approach slowly dismantling the occupying orcs in each region to organically weaken the fortress works really well. It is fun to have that journey from working your way from the bottom to the top and really feel like you earned your army. And the game does that pretty well. All in all, Shadow of War is a good game. But that's not what you really want to hear, is it? What you want to hear is about the microtransactions. You don't need to pay the game a cent, and honestly, you shouldn't pay the game a cent. One, it doesn't derail the game by just pretty much giving you the best stuff, because like I said, you can't recruit orcs that are higher than your level, so everything is kind of kept around you. Two, it's nothing you can't get in their actual game. It takes away part of the organic fun of finding orcs and asking if they want to talk about our Bright Lord. Don't skip the game because you're worried about the microtransactions. Don't be that guy. You don't need to be that guy. We good? We good. Hey everyone, thanks for watching. Sorry this took a little longer than usual to get this video out, but I wanted to be sure that I gave Shadow of War enough time to deliver a proper verdict. I think I'm going to start breaking away from the weekly content updates, simply because I want to make sure I give enough specific time to each individual work that I come across. That being said, in the coming weeks I have a whole lot of music reviews coming up, so be ready for that. Also, look for a trailer for the new edition of my novel, Alteration, coming sometime this week. Once again, thanks for watching, and feel free to subscribe if you feel like you want to hear more of my voice.